winning 90% of your new business because you have some sort of incredible value.
I'm going to take a bit of a different angle.
I've got a budget this big. I'm going to give it to you because you have a really killer plan.
You give a Red Bull to a turtle, what do you expect?
I think that's a dead turtle. So let's move on to...
Rick. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Does your current premium finance company lock you into long-term agreements? That's because they don't want you talking to us. At IFS, we win your business the good old-fashioned way, with customer service. I know you don't always have to use a premium finance company, but when you do, you should use IFS. Cheers.
Hi there, and welcome to the Digital Insurance Pint podcast. Today, we're pleased to have fellow podcaster and entrepreneur extraordinaire, Pete Tessier, with us. Pete, how's it going?
It's going great. Love to see you guys. It's been a while, so it's always good to see some friendly faces, at least friendly for now.
Just introduce quickly my co-hosts here. We got Steve Earle from Brawl Insurance.
Hello.
Adam Mitchell, CEO of Mitch Insurance.
Hello.
And Jeff Roy, CEO of Excalibur Insurance.
Hey, Pinters.
So today I have to admit that we've done less preparation for this podcast than most of our podcasts. So this may be a little loosey-goosey. So you have to imagine that we're sitting in a bar having a beer, as one does, and we're just shooting the shit. And there you go. Look at that. That's a little flashback to the old days of the pint.
Well, if I should have had 3 before I came on with you guys, but, we're catching up.
All right. So what caused me to reach out to Pete and ask him to come on the show, which he immediately declined, but then had a change of heart, was a post that he put out on LinkedIn. And it went something like this. Pete was the facilitator at the recent IBAA CEO panel, and he posted some takeaways that he had understood during the conversation. And one of them is essentially that AI is here, that brokers have, I'm going to put words in your mouth here, Pete, so feel free to correct me. Well,
it's right on the screen.
Okay, well, all right, but I'm going to interpret it.
Sure.
I'm going to give you my interpretation. So you came out there and said, hey, this is our Napster moment. AI is going to alter many industries, including ours. And he mentioned that Louis Gagnon from Intact had said, start playing with AI, start testing things out. That one thing that none of these guys said was that you should right off the hop go out there and buy an AI solution. Although solution, I should point out, is spelled wrong. So clearly this was written by a human and not by AI. So well done, Pete. So basically take control of this yourself. Anyway, so I am quite interested in this conversation here and want to invite Pete on here to have it. So Pete, do you want to chat about what you actually meant there?
Well, sure. Look, it's nice that you introduce everyone else's title, Tom. So I'm Pete Tessier, host and founder of the Insurance Podcast. I'm also the president of Take On Risk, a new MGA or maturing MGA. I'm also the president of CAMGA, the Canadian Association of Managing General Agents. And I don't speak for any of those entities right now. I'm just speaking for Pete and what I know. I think it's an important distinction.
Shout out to our sponsor, IFS Premium Finance. Thank you very much, guys, for all your support.
So what do I mean by that? I think you have to sort of look at insurance historically and how we've looked at technology and when moments come. And the insurance industry is basically, is always upside down, backwards and inverted and incredibly slow to adopt things. And for generations, we are the person who, when they sit down, instead of pulling the piano stool closer to the piano, we try to pull the piano closer to us. That's how insurance operates. We try to move monolithic things to solve our problems instead of moving the simple things and making things easier to do. And that's what AI does. That's what it is. And I think I get hit, and you guys probably do too, 5 times a week with someone wanting to come on and talk about AI on my show. I literally answered like 15 emails yesterday, all people wanting to pitch their AI. And I said, "Oh, it's great. You got AI. What does it do?" Well, it transforms things. It makes things faster. Insurance companies get faster to quote. It's the same freaking nonsense that everyone's been saying about technology for years. They say, so what does it actually do? And they can't tell you. That's because it doesn't fricking do anything. It's snake oil. We're in the biggest snake oil selling point I've ever seen with a technology. And it's basically a race to convince enough people that their tech with AI is going to solve all your problems. And it's the same pitch that everyone in this industry has fallen for again. We'll solve everything for you. It's the same thing BMSs have said for years. They haven't solved a frickin' thing, right? It's the same thing. Oh, we got data exchange. Well, no, we don't. We had it 15 years ago. Nothing moved. Don't even get me started on that. And the problem is that it's the same message that we will solve all your problems. And frankly, you know what? They're also telling you they have problems you don't even know about. And as the guy in Dr. Phil said, well, Phil, I didn't know I had that problem until you told me I did. And every time someone tells me the problem I have with my insurance entity or entities in it, I look at them and go, you have no idea what our problems are. You just think you do. You don't live them. You don't experience them. The amount of companies I've told, like, guys, you're selling Hopium, and the Hopium is what you smoke to make us believe that you hope we're going to believe what you're selling. And it's time and time again.
How do you feel about this, Pete?
I'm not passionate, Jeff. Not like you.
No, I get to. Hey, I think I'm going to jump in here for a second. I think one of the problems, as you mentioned, there's too many people. They have a technology solution looking for a problem or a home, and most brokers need to get right workflow first. What problem are we trying to solve? And brokers need to figure out what level of AI they're on. Like, just because you've bought ChatGPT doesn't mean you know how to use ChatGPT. That's kind of level 1. Level 2 is actually being able to use generative AI and put your persona in there. And level 3 is building agentic agents. So I think a lot of people need to know where the hell they are in the journey. Most people can't spell journey. They're not sure where it is. And the last thing I'll jump into where the brokers have been a problem is the country that sells the product. So let's take Colombia and beans, the raw material. They get exploited, and people like Italy make all the money because they come up with the expensive coffees and they upvalue it. The insurance brokers have bought the BMS and all the technology solutions. We become data mules, and somebody else, yes, it serves a purpose for us, but somebody's making money off our IP and what we're doing. And we gave away the cloud, we put everything in the servers right now. Are we going to give away AI? Are we going to sell all our intellectual property? That's I think the bigger question we need to be asking people. So just I wanted to jump in there and dovetail on what you.
We don't disagree. You're right. Like, in the point of buying a solution without actually sort of trying to attempt to build your own, you're probably going to miss. And how many times you want to miss? And Adam, you've used the term, and before in some of the stuff you've written, you need a lot of at bats before you start hitting the ball, right?
Oh,
and that's
don't use my words against me, Pete. That's not fair.
No, I'm using them as a praise. And the point I'm saying is why would you use at bats with third parties when you could start doing it yourself? And that's what AI does. Then you can isolate where your issues are, and then you can make a way better informed decision before you go out and start testing the waters. Because here's the other thing about the AI vendors. They're still copying the license model. That's dead. That's dead. And the seat license thing is gone.
There's so many problems with this super dynamic file, and by the time this thing ships, probably half the statements are going to be stale dated because 6 new releases came out. But let's take a stab. I hate that tech companies, and you've probably been a buyer of this, get to purport 32 features and benefits of solving problems, and we can debate if their hammer is looking for nails or they truly claim to solve real problems. But there's no consequence when those things don't actually work. Like that drives me nuts. I wish there was a more common, we hold contractors accountable to build a building on time for the price, or else there's a bid bond and a performance bond, and I get to claim it if you are a liar. I don't get that in technology around insurance.
You're 100% right, Adam. And you know what? This is a message to all the broker association CEOs. You should be doing that and say, you want to test out your stuff on our members, put a bid bond up. And so if you screw up, and they should have to go through them. That's one thing associations could do.
And or make a sandbox. You make a sandbox and say, okay, you're free testing in here, and then we'll put a stamp and say, we authenticate, it did what it said. It is a lot of work for underfunded associations. Best I can tell, most of the large language models are the world's best bullshitters, right? This is the cool, confident kid in the bar that's going to be able to make every claim and every angle and everything. And it sounds brilliant. And it's incredible how brilliant AI is at everything I know nothing about, and how absolute shit it is about something I happen to know a little bit about. And so that's the part that scares me on the build enterprise solution for yourself, is you've exposed a rat's nest of Russia friendly coding to the world, and you don't have the knowledge to know whether or not that's buttoned up or secure, or where it's bullshitting or not, or how it's validating. I fully agree with that statement. Like, you got to get in there. You got to get in the batting cage, but it should be a batting cage. You should start practicing. Like, you're not game ready, but like, start having some swings and playing with it. And you're not wasting money on memberships right now. You're running the risk of getting left behind. There is a chance that Applied will come down from the clouds with a wonderful $8 solution, and we won't all have to think about this. It'll be designed for us like our BMS was. But right now, it's pretty scary dynamic times.
So, one, I do want to point out, this isn't the IBAC tech track here, but IBAC is actually running some proofs of concept, and part of the entrance fee is that the vendor has to charge $0 for the period of the proof of concept, right? So we are, in fact, requiring vendors to come in and put essentially some of their own money on the table, and then IBAC will evaluate, along with the broker who's experiencing the proof of concept, will run through and do a case study. So when we've partnered with RCCQ on one of them, and we'll likely partner with some other associations. So I take your point about the associations, and I would like to see a lot more of that. Quebec guys they've got their own living lab. They've got 5 or 6 of these case studies that are in there already. So it's happening, but probably not enough. So like everybody, I think we're all agreeing quite strongly that brokers should get in there and try it out. I, as a former software development professional, absolutely disagree that brokers should be building their own tools outside of a very few use cases, like maybe a Sharif or Adam or whatever, like guys who are like really on the cutting edge of the curve. Building something on your own when you're an insurance broker running a business, I don't think it's going to work. I think
So what else shouldn't they build then, Tom? So how many brokers run programs? How do they know how to underwrite? You've got a cross-pollination of this whole idea of building everything on your own. So now all of a sudden it stops at software, but were they allowed to do other things?
No. I would say it stops at a couple of things. It stops at software. It stops at building your own office. It stops at building your own company car. Like, none of these things brokers know how to do, right? And in most cases, it's going to cost you more money than buying a package that somebody else has done all the dev work on.
So as long as you're a smart buyer and you've identified the problem and you've measured the ROI and you've gone through a process, so you're not buying a shiny thing for the sake of buying a shiny thing. I get approached by an AI vendor. Yeah, we're going to solve your problems. Well, what problems are they? I know the problem that I have. I want to see specifically that it's changing this one little thing. And then you're talking about the whole seat model and all that. I don't think I've had one yet say to me that this is X amount per seat. It's all been transactional, right? So I agree that the seat model is likely dying or dead, but it'll be based on use some way or another. And I think even the BMSs are going to have to go there.
Yeah. They're probably going to go to metered flow as an attempt to try and maintain revenue, but that's going to be under such constant pressure and relevance.
Well, what we're trying to get at, I think, in this particular pricing model is that at the end of the day, there is a certain benefit that is either promised and or experienced by the broker, right? And let's say the broker benefits to the tune of $100. The vendor pricing should be based on that. I like 20, 30%, right? So if I come to you and say, I'm going to do something that nets you $100, I want a piece of that, right? So every year you make an extra $100, you pay me $20, so you net $80. Everybody wins. But if I come to you and say, we think you're going to bet of $100, but I know that my price tag is X, right? Then basically everybody has some skin in the game. And the transactional model, as long as you're modeling out what your transaction cost you and therefore how much benefit you're getting, that's a proxy for that. But to me, that's where things need to evolve to is driving new benefits and sharing the results of those benefits.
Look, as a broker that, I couldn't code anything. I guess I could get AI to do it now. But the point is, I would rather build a framework for my organization by which we deploy AI and say you got to have a robust use case testing. You have to have governance in there. I'd rather build everything around that and then buy little pieces that meet my specific criteria, and not just buy based on a sales pitch, because that's where everything goes wrong.
Steve, I agree with that. And I think one of the things that, Tom, maybe you've overstated this, is that I'm not saying build an enterprise system with AI and flip it out to the world. I'm saying before people start embedding AI into your workflows or whatever the AI is trying to do for you, you should be using it yourself to test things in your own internal research R&D sandbox to understand what you need. Most brokers, when I talk to them about AI, they don't even know what they don't know about what they need. And that's you got to go backwards. So I'm not saying go build out a tool that basically gathers data on a risk submission so you can enter it into XYZ platform that will then send it off someplace else. I'm saying, I did a talk to a leader summit on this about a month and a half ago. And I said, using three math concepts you learned in grade school, and using Claude, and I showed them how to do it, I can teach you more about your book and behaviors of all your clients and your team than you can get out of Applied right now on anything they use. And I showed them how to do it. And that's the point. It's not flipping, it's information. AI is going to allow you to take unstructured data and make sense of it so much faster to make better decisions, because you don't have to buy applied analytics. You don't have to have a third party come in and look at this stuff. Maybe for the very bleeding edges, there's some artifacting stuff and information that you want that AI can pick up and use, and some of the really heavy data scientist-backed AI companies can help you do it. And that's like really in-depth stuff. But most brokers don't need to flip something as an enterprise solution. They need a solution inside that means they're not beholden to someone else and another cost initiative of adding on. Why should we be trusting the same people who have held us hostage again? And I think that goes back to what Adam was saying.
Yeah, so I take your point, and I'm going to agree and make a clarification. So I wasn't talking about brokers putting out some enterprise solution for others to buy. But let me go back to your comment. Like, the knowledge management piece is amazing, right? Like, part of a presentation that I gave a little while ago for shits and giggles, I was using Notebook LM, and I got Steve's vehicle renewal, and I downloaded, he was with Aviva, I got a copy of Aviva's auto policy. And this was a year and a half ago. I was able to, yeah, I mean, it's absolutely mind blowing. So I could actually that's the system, I would prompt the system to go look at his renewal, look at the underwriting manual, and see if he had any gaps. Right. So that's awesome. And that wasn't at scale, but that gives you a sense of what can be done. Right. So now when it comes to knowledge management, like, a lot of these chatbot tools are absolutely phenomenal at that. And I use them every day. Now, where I was going was more transactional systems. So if I want to handle an interaction with a customer, and, you do 10 quotes as a personal lines broker, you're going to get, 2 or 3 sales. If I have my AI handle that first 30 minutes of heavy lifting, now I got my staff only talking to those 2. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about not having brokers build, right? Yeah. You want to play with Claude and Gemini and Notebook LM and all those tools. I would say if you're not doing it, you're way behind.
Right. So maybe that, to your point about building things in sort of the customer transaction part, maybe that's where there's a bit of a philosophical divide, and where people are going to want to use AI and people who don't want to use it. I probably sit on the side that goes to a little more of old school, where I want AI in the back office fixing the things that are individualized to my operation, so that my team is giving a human experience, because I don't want to turn them into a telecom. I don't want to turn them into a front end thing where everyone's hitting zero or trying to bypass the chatbot to get to the human. And I have my reasons for that I can explain later, but that's sort of the philosophy I see. Whereas there's probably others who have a much different view of saying, I need a much more automated process because my funnel is so wide that I have to get to a certain point.
But Pete, like, everybody's different. Like,
yeah, that's what I mean. Everyone's different.
Like, it depends on, you don't want people pressing 9, you know what I mean? Or, so it depends on the humans you have. If the humans you have suck, then the AI is better. You know what I mean?
If the humans you have suck, that's not that's a different issue.
Okay, so let's look at two different things. You want to try to get it to take tasks or actions away that are not revenue generating, right? Donkey work, right?
Yeah,
that's important. So there's stuff that humans are doing that you want to transfer to the AI because it's not adding value to their customer experience or anything. It's that background stuff. But what about the stuff too that could be customer facing that either you can't afford to employ humans to do, like answer the phone and take quote information at 3:00 in the morning, right? What about that? I mean, I would rather I've talked to a lot of different AI agents in different verticals, and they're getting pretty good. And I would rather talk to an AI agent than some of the humans that have answered phones in different industries. I'll tell you that.
Who's shopping at 3 a.m? What percentage of your audience is doing
whatever?
that?
But
it matters because you've got to find a cost benefit to justify having the AI to answer people at 3 a.m.
3:00 in the morning. Okay, from 5 p.m. onwards. How about weekends or whatever?
Or how about during the day when your staff are busy
when everybody's on the phone,
an overflow?
Yeah. How about that?
Yeah. So let me run a couple of things by you. I just want to come back to your shitty humans because I just want to share an article that I read that I took differently than apparently most of the commenters did. So there's an article I guess there was a proof of concept run at the Canada Revenue Agency, and they had an AI chatbot answering various questions, and it was 37% accurate. And everybody freaked out. It's go, oh no, it's only 37% accurate. Like, this is terrible. Why would CRA do this? Buried in the article, the actual human beings, the CRA people you talk to on the phone, were 17% accurate. I'm like, okay, the AI sucks, but it's actually better than the service that's already being provided, which I'm like, oh my God, memo to self, never call CRA. I think that was my particular takeaway. But, there's a bunch of stuff that can get done here. I actually saw an article by Ben Ritchie's, and it prompted me to kind of do some investigating. So I looked at a bunch of different use cases for brokers. So front end stuff, intake triage, we were talking about that, inbound calls, automated renewal outreach, predicting client churn, some client self-service, like basic questions, policy lookup, get my pink slip, that kind of stuff, upsell and needs analysis. So these are, in some cases, these are things that AI can take on its own, and in some cases they can be done in conjunction with a human, right? The needs analysis. I'm talking to you, Pete, and I'm just, chatting with my bot, and it tells me, it adds on to what I think I already know. But there's a bunch of stuff there. And then, what you're talking about, I think what you're talking about is some of the more back office stuff, submission prep, underwriting analysis, market selection, analytics, benchmarking, stuff that doesn't touch the customer, but that will supercharge your internal team.
So, but I think we're very early adoption on the front end of stuff right now, and it's got to get better. I just got my renewal, my home insurance renewal, which was produced through one of our known vendors that helps automation on that. It wasn't just wrong. It was so wrong. I literally and it was so wrong that I actually called up the person in charge of insurance services who I used to work with and said, you've got to see this because you're paying for something that's making you look stupid. And what it did was it recommended all the coverage I had on my policy. That's how bad it is. And no one's checking it. They're trusting. And that's the point, is that it's not working, and it's happening all the time, Tom. And then you go and you talk to others and are like, yeah, I got recommended for sewer backup and I already have it on my policy. So who's checking to make sure it's there? Now, I don't even get me started on the regulatory side of this, because the regulatory side is coming down the pipe, and it's probably not going to be pretty.
I think what some key points here is you need a human in the loop is a big key thing, right? It's one thing to use AI, but if you blindly use AI and let it do everything, you're in charge of the AI. You're in trouble. You're at the end of the day, the human's taking it. So too many people are blindly using it, thinking it's working, and they're not checking it. People are supposed to be checking and auditing their team, listening to their phone calls. I question how many people are doing that. So I think you need to focus on, it's AI. I believe it's human plus AI equals super broker, and it's figuring out what tasks the AI can do better and which ones the humans can do it, and getting that orchestrated. And that comes back to what I said earlier. You got to figure out what workflow we're trying to work at, who should do what, divvy it up, and then figure out the tools you want to use. Now, most people are going to buy stuff off the shelf because they don't have the people in house to code it. And the biggest thing is, back to Steve's point and Adam's, there's no governance. If you don't know, if you got a data lake, you don't know who's getting what data, you have no way of checking it. You got data going all over the place. Some kid that coded it on Vibe Code running your agency of 300 people, there's leaks everywhere, and you're going to be in trouble. So I think people are getting the false sense that, hey, I can do this myself. They shouldn't. But I think you want to make sure that you're using certain AI where there's good business case, and we could talk about the 15 reasons why you want to use it. But these are all things that I think brokers need to look at when they're figuring this out.
Let me sort of zoom in on this and agree on a couple different sides, because I think it's a nuanced problem. And I think part of our disagreement is going to be in a definition of terms as to, do you have cyber coverage? Well, I have a cyber word. Well, cyber isn't cyber isn't cyber. And okay, well, building AI isn't necessarily building everything in AI. To Tom's point, do not try and compete with Google. And I don't think Pete's suggesting that, no matter which way we twist his post. Here's an example that I had in a cool. So I got all of our clients in a spreadsheet, very simple output out of Power Broker, and had a what I have, name, address, premium, tenure with the brokerage. And so I fed Claude code, hey, build me a map with slicers, maybe a total of 8 sentences, a couple different iterations of, I wanted a couple other buttons to click onto, top customers, different angles. Cool. I then said, hey, deduce from the name if it's male or female. So I had that filter because it wasn't in my data. It did. I send this to a couple other key teammates, and they're like, hey, that's really wicked, but it's wide open. There's no security sign-in. Oh, fuck. Okay, pull back. Go recode. Security sign-in. Okay, got it. It took me another 10 seconds. But for a moment, my entire client base could have been viewed by anybody.
I saw it.
Right?
I bought it. Right.
Well, you have really weird browsing habits. B, okay, cool. So now I go through the process of getting a more sophisticated one for easy sign-in on my team. I work with my IT. I get single sign-on. Get to the end of that process, and they're like, well, we've gate kept the front door, but your back door is wide open. Like, anybody sophisticated that wants to right click, see source code, and beyond me, they can see your file. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch. Okay, let me just stop my whole thing. So to win Pete's argument, and I think valid and true, get in there, start mucking around, start playing with it, raise the intelligence of AI capability of your team. Maybe start with leadership and trickle down. Do it with extreme caution, because to Tom's claim, I'm mildly more sophisticated than the average broker, right? But I am far from the tech team that has built a career capable of building secure apps and web capable things. And I think it's a lot like putting, free F1 cars to every 14-year-old that's not even yet licensed. Like, yeah, technically, you should just whip to the store. You can go to the store. You can get your own bacon and eggs. Like, stop bugging mom and dad. You're highly likely to kill yourself. And that's over dramatic on so many different fronts. But these are, like, in this little story of this one example, I really could have exposed it. And somebody who thought through it a little less could have not had counsel from their team and their IT and said, hey, clients, look at this widget I built you. And it could have bad actors real quick.
And that's a wrap on the show. No. So I think that's a great point, and that's kind of where I was going. I think earlier. I think that when it comes to some of this knowledge management stuff, you keep it inside the house, you keep it secure. It is absolutely phenomenal, and everybody needs to learn how to use it because it is happening. And I think when it comes to something that's a little more certainly exposed outside the organization, building it yourself is just a terrible idea. Now, I'll say a couple of things. I don't think that. Sorry, going back to a point, Pete, you made almost off the hop, if I remember correctly, about how much, I forget the word used, but I'm going to go bullshit.
Snake oil.
How much snake oil? Thank you. How much snake oil is out there? I totally agree. Right? Like, I have used
it's a gold rush right now.
Absolutely. And I'm actually working on a graphic, and I've been working on it and reworking on it a number of times. It's basically a pyramid of AI tools. And at the top are those truly insurance specific, small language models that are absolutely controlled, that absolutely know your shit, that have been trained on insurance, blah, blah, blah. And then underneath that are tools that are built on OpenAI and Gemini and Claude and whatever that require, an API into those tools to do that. And underneath that is basically a advanced version of fuzzy search, and then you got a snake oil. And the bottom of the pyramid is by far the biggest one, right? So if you're not a sophisticated buyer, you look at this whole pyramid and you go, 85% of stuff's bullshit. How do I find those nuggets that are at the top tier of this pyramid? And that's very difficult. So
this image I was sharing, because somehow my brain thinks in memes, this came out of a Deloitte AI thing, and I love it. You can just Google it. It's online. This is happening every day right now. And that, like, brokers are, although they're sitting on a wild amount of data, and Jeff has all his data muling jokes, they don't have a strong data literacy. We certainly don't have a strong data structure or cleanliness or, harness to then start applying these things to. But if I gave everybody their data in a data lake, I bet you 99% have no idea what it is, where to get it, how to sign in, how to use it, how to validate. I want to pivot to one other, because I think there's another. We've talked for a while that AI is going to empower bad actors just as much, if not more, than good actors. Like your ability to scam somebody in perfect poetic prose, and now even have voice, augmentation and video augmentation. So that's full on fraudulent scamming. Then I think there's micro scamming. And I think micro scamming is happening when Dunning-Kruger, gets a hold of these things, and every 18-year-old, recent grad, 20-year-old, whatever, is purporting to know this better than Steve or Pete or Adam, and saying, hey, I can fix all your problems, and I have this thing, and I'm going to make a wildly impressive deck and maybe a wildly impressive video. But to Pete's point, you haven't had enough life experience in this brokerage world to know, here's my problems and things. And they might not even be intending to try and scam or know how bullshit their claims are they're making.
Well, okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, guys, and I think you raised some good points. I mean, the first thing is I made a post about, back to the beginning here, start testing and playing with this stuff to learn and understand what it does and how it works, right? You got to dabble in it to understand. So when you are looking at a solution, you've at least understood how the technology works, what you're doing. Play with it. Do some basic things. That's the concept, okay? Could have been clear. But, I was typing that on a car ride back from Banff. So hence the bad spelling a solution. Adam, to your point, I've seen this. I actually have a whole module on how to do kind of the similar thing, and we've done it internally, and where it exists and how do you do that. And there's a whole other security thing. So the caveat with everything is test your ideas, build a sandbox, but find an IT partner who's going to finish it off on the stuff that you'll never be able to do. Because what we've all learned, right, is you go and send something to a bunch of tech people and they come back and they're like, look what we did. And it's like, wow, that cost me X amount of dollars. And I think collectively we've all got some hilarious tech debt that we'd probably never reveal to anyone and the number, but we've all got it. And, that's just part of being an innovator and taking some risks, right? But we don't like it. And I think there's a way to avoid that because AI is going to help us do it. So at least you're focusing where you're putting your expenses on. If you understand, I want to use this as a tool, how do I make sure the tool is safe? And I don't know, it's a totally valid point. Tom, to your point, should brokers be developing things, flipping it out to the customer and saying, here you go? No, I think it should be behind closed walls. I think it should be more back office appropriate. And I think there's more things that can be done in the back office to improve your front office than reverse. That's just my belief. It doesn't mean I'm right, just what my belief is. And that's how I approach it.
Pete, I agree with your point about you can't learn to swim on the shore. You got to go out there. And I always say in the last couple of years, think big, start small, move fast. You got to get your hands dirty. You got to get messy. I'll point out back to your snake oil. Who got rich during the gold rush? The people selling the shovels, right? So we got to be careful that, brokers aren't buying the wrong shovels, wasting time, blowing money, going down the wrong rabbit hole. They need to be solving problems, working workflows, back to what I said before. And I think there's some good practical advice for brokers. Like, the problem is a lot of people, my concern is you need to focus on governance, and I'll pitch it to IBAC. There's some good governance documents on our IBAC Tech website. But the problem is a lot of people are saying, well, there's too many risks, I'm not going to do anything. And they're using governance as an excuse to do jack shit. And that's going to put you behind. My concern is there'll be a point where people are so far behind, they're never going to catch up. And that's the scary part. This is moving, like I always tell people, 20 years to go digital, 20 minutes to go AI. So you got to be on top of this. You can't wait for, I'm going to follow these other brokers, a year or two later and catch up. You don't have that kind of time frame. So I think there needs to be a little more urgency.
We're 2 years and $500,000 into a build that I've yet to play with. So Jeff, and that's us building what we believe is needed to be an infrastructure to be able to start playing with these modern tools and what we think is going to be commoditized. Who else can spend that? We got to be into a fraction of a percent of brokerage entities that can take that kind of a bet, have that kind of a team, that kind of resourcing or fortitude. And we still might be stillborn. There's a risk to that. We think no, but
the point being, Adam, and I think it's commendable that you're willing to do that, but you guys think, and I was a broker, and part of the reason I got out from being a broker was because I saw where the tech expense to modernize is going to go, and my business partner and I sort of didn't really agree on that vision. And so that kind of created a difference of how you want to proceed, right? Different needs, different things. So you guys see things and you're prepared to do it. There's a lot of brokers in this industry who love their dividends, live a comfortable lifestyle, and aren't willing to give that up because of reasons. And frankly, if you're going to survive, you're going to have to give up a little in the short term to win longer, to win in the long term. That's just reality.
Yeah, I think the timelines are debatable because you can probably coast for the next 5 years investing nothing. And
honestly, I think, you know what? I disagree. I think in the next
going to happen inside 5.
I think in the next 3 years, insurance companies are going to absolutely obliterate small brokers. I think
how by pressing commissions?
Just in behaviors, support, whatever. They're going to say, you know what? No thanks, guys. I can do this a little differently. I don't need you. Right now, so an analyst told me recently, and I said this to Rowan, Nav, and Louis in Alberta, that by their best estimations, 27% of brokers in Canada are doing 82% of the brokers distributed business. The same 80-20 rule you hear about in all sorts of business. That should scare the living daylights out of a lot of people. And how many do you think fall in that 27%? Who you could probably name 6 of them, right? If there's 10 in there, you could probably name 6 right away.
I'm going to go with less than 100. Yeah,
that should really scare people, because you know what? What happens is insurance companies. Let's throw some insurance companies under the bus because none of them are here. They talk a great game. They show up at the conventions. They do everything. But at the end of the day, what's sitting on their desks is a whack of data. And they've got some very smart people telling them what the data means if they can't figure it out. And they make they make data-driven decisions, and they know who butters their bread. And if you're not buttering the bread, you're going to get left behind. Jeff, I know you and I have had a conversation about this before, and it's a hard reality. And you know what? You can talk to any CEO. It can be a small mutual. It can be this. But if you gave them the opportunity to land a massive program with revenue results that XYZ independent broker with 4 offices can't do, but one of the big ones can, you know where they're going first. Everyone says, "Oh, we're open for business." No, you're not.
So, what's your message to those? If there's 2,000 brokerages in the country, the 1,900 that are not part of that top group. What's your message?
You need to come up with alternative sources of capacity right now, and you need to do it. You need to do it in 5 years. You need to pool resources and come up with your own capacity. And as a plug for Take on Risk, we can help you do it. Absolutely.
I was wondering where that was going.
No. But aside from that, want to talk about that another time. I totally do it. Whoever controls the capacity has control of the flow. Insurance is not a complicated business.
You need capacity and clients. There's the mix of whoever has either. So, if the insurance companies get to the clients first, they already have capacity, and vice versa.
Or whoever has capacity. Don't think of it as insurance companies. Just think about whoever has capacity. So this is I'm kind of veering off here. This is kind of taking a different thing.
Let's go to the idea of let's figure out, could the insurance companies service these clients without the brokers? So to pause and back into that question, of this panel of 5 or 4 answering, what task have you given up on people on that you've just, if you were going to do data analysis, I'm going to one of the AIs? Is there something in our daily lives that you are no longer even thinking about a person? Is it writing, graphics, and analysis? Just a poll of 4. Do you guys have anything
that you don't need a person for?
That you have shifted your life over the last 3 years from, I used to talk to my accountant, now I don't. I give Claude my spreadsheet and it gives me something. Or I no longer read this the 40-page PDF. I give it to Notebook and I get my deduction. What thing do you trust it implicitly that you no longer want a human involved?
I don't think, for me, Adam, it's anything. It's just I'm faster. I'm so
okay, but
right. I can take.
What are you faster at?
I can take bullshit diarrhea that can come out of my mouth and just put it somewhere, and it cleans it up and whatever, and then I can check it over. The crafting something. I'm just talking about writing right now. Crafting something professional and business-like it took me a lot longer than it does now.
Let's say team at scale, that would be an editor. You would hand your verbal diarrhea to a comms team and they would craft it. But smaller organization, you just
okay. Well, there's people that don't.
Sure, but who else has one?
Well, I guess same thing. A lot of times, legal documents. You have a meeting with people. I've had different vendors where I've had issues where I ran through the contract in 30 seconds. I said, "Hey, what's wrong with this, this, and this?" And I went to my professional, and magically they've changed their position because I had an argument crafted with AI in 30 seconds. I didn't waste any time and moved on. So
sure, yeah. Pretty good one. So if that didn't absolutely alleviate your lawyer from all cases, it certainly took 20, 40, 80% off their plate of where you're not going to check with them because this is a basic NDA. I'm going to have it mildly reviewed and then I'm comfortable. Tom, do you have any?
Anything knowledge oriented. So the legal thing, the accounting thing, the writing, creating graphics thing, anything that is sort of knowledge white collar oriented. I haven't fired anybody or haven't dispensed with any services, but I use them less. But to come back to one of Jeff's points about this return on intelligence, what I am doing though is I'm double checking to make sure thing is correct. I'm making sure that my output is the quality of my output is dramatically better than it would have been before, and that even smaller things that I would have kind of done a half-assed job on to get to the big things are being done much more professionally. So the quality has gone up.
Yeah. Pete, do you have any smoking guns?
No, because the other side hasn't caught up to where maybe I want to go. You see what I'm saying? So I totally agree with you. There's no smoking guns yet.
Well,
it's a matter of it's a matter of when the shots start getting fired.
I'm going to a scarier place. So if we take Tom's example for a thing of like knowledge work, and I put it through a review before I publish, is a good, prudent way to exist. But I would bet that if we were to map over time diligently, his amount of review has lessened as his trust built up of this thing's pretty good, right? And we're in those early days of nonsensical first answer out of Google for a website that's not related. Now you can trust pretty damn well the first couple are going to solution your question if a good question. The punching point is how long before the general public consumer insurance buyers trust their AI to research the market and interpret, some policies better.
It's already there. It's been launched in the States twice. I'm doing a podcast with the guy coming up. Adam, I 100% agree. And I think this is the problem that's going to catch brokers off guard, is that when you sell a policy, someone's going to be able to now compare against it back against you. I knew exactly where you're going once you brought that in. Yeah. I 100% agree.
And I don't know how you defend against it unless your proprietary tool that you're serving your customers is better trained and tuned to the nuances of your area of the economy. What I think brokers should wake up to, and insurance companies, because Pete's on one end saying, what do you need capacity for? Like, there's lots of ways to get capital. And brokers are going to have to stare at this too. I'll give credit to Stephen Billiard. I sat next to him at a dinner, and the jury's really out whether brokers can use AI to give the best in class of service and things, or whether GPT, Claude, and other are going to outbroker brokers.
Is retention important to your brokerage? Of course it is. That's why at IFS, we have a cancellation prevention process. Want more details? Give us a call. I know you don't always use a premium finance company, but when you do, you should use IFS. Cheers.